There's two things I learned that I could do. I could hit a baseball, and I think I can learn or teach a lot of people not to make the same mistakes that I made. That they can learn from my situation. And I think there's a lot of people that may be headed in the wrong path, can just look at what happened to me and learn from that situation. There was a time in my life when I was out of control, gambling. I guess there's probably a lot of people in this town could be out of control gambling. But I worked hard at it. I got it under wraps for the last several years. And, you know, I'm in control of my life right now. All I look forward to being someday is friends of baseball. I want baseball and Pete Rose to be friends. That's all I want for it. So I can say I'm not an outsider looking in. I got grandkids. They want their grandpa to be associated with baseball. That's all.
That was Pete Rose speaking after his appeal for reinstatement to baseball was denied. And all he wants to be is friends with baseball, Skip. You watched this whole press conference. Did it change your mind?
Not only did it not change my mind, it actually helped make it up even more strongly than ever, Stephen A. Smith. The whole show yesterday, and I watched it live from start to finish, was nothing short of pathetic. Lord have mercy on us all. I can't help, because I've been around him a lot, I can't help still liking Pete. I badly want to embrace his campaign to get reinstated, just to be a part, to be friends with baseball. And then I watched this pathetic undertaking yesterday at the Pete Rose Sports Bar and Grill on the Las Vegas Strip, as he is backed by a throne. It says Throne of Hit King. Throne of Hit King right behind him. He's not sitting on the throne. He's sitting just in front of his Throne of Hit King, made of baseball bats, right behind him. As all the stories pointed out, you couldn't see this on our live feed, as scantily clad employees of the restaurant walked around holding signs in support of their employer, Pete Rose. This is the scene yesterday. And then we get to his gambling. He goes through his former gambling addiction, and our new baseball commissioner, Rob Manfred, obviously voiced concern that today's Pete Rose would be able to refrain from still betting on baseball. And Pete says, no, I've gotten my old addiction under control. I've worked hard to get it under control. Then he adds that, hey, like anybody else in Las Vegas, he likes to go home every night and bet on whatever game's on TV. That doesn't sound like you have it completely under control.
Want to keep that to yourself.
I'm sorry, you a little too much information, Pete. So you're disqualified from having your gambling under control. You either do it or you don't. It's a form of addiction like alcoholism. You either drink or you don't drink. And in this case, he's still betting on whatever game's on that night, disqualified. And then finally, for the first time at the end of his statement that he made, as he did take some questions, Pete Rose showed the first contrition, genuine contrition, that he showed in 26 years. He finally said, hey, I was so wrong. I want to become a new role model to show the kids how not to do it. We never heard this from him. He lied and lied and lied about betting on baseball, period. Then in 2004, he comes out with a book, My Prison Without Bars, in which he divulges, or at least admits to finally, that he bet on baseball as a manager to help sell that book. And then, as we know, recently, our Outside the Lines here at ESPN reported that, nope, much evidence to the contrary, that Pete Rose did bet while he was a player as well as a manager. So he's up against it here, and in the end, Stephen A., he comes across as this carnival sideshow huckster, this pathetic sort of loser who still, he wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to preserve his same lifestyle, but suddenly he's going to be contrite and say, I'm so sorry, and to reach for the grandkids who want to know that Granddad is part of baseball. Pete, You should have thought about your grandkids or potential grandkids 26 years ago when you basically waged war on baseball as you lied and lied and lied about how you disrespected the game by betting on it as a player. So in the end, I have zero sympathy for him, Stephen A. And again, I found this mostly just laughable yesterday.
Well, I find nothing about this laughable. I don't find his situation laughable. He obviously brought all of this on himself. But I don't find your position and those who think like you laughable at all. I find it sad. I find it incredibly alarming that you all have such a lack of compassion. It's been 26 years. That's where I'm at. Y'all act like folks are out there saying that Pete Rose didn't do anything wrong, that he didn't lie, that he didn't gamble on baseball, that he wasn't a pathological liar, you know, y'all, that he was the greatest human being in the world, and he wasn't this acerbic individual who treated, whether it be Bart Giamatti or Faye Vincent or John Dowd, like trash. Y'all act like folks don't know that. We do know that. Nobody's absolving Pete Rose from what he did, nor the despicable human being that at least he was at a particular moment in time. Nobody's even forgetting the fact that he lied and lied and lies continuously for years, 15 and counting before the autobiography came out, and he ultimately told and acknowledged that he gambled on the sport of baseball. And we are not, oblivious to the fact that he profited off of it, and he's been profiting off of gambling and selling books and selling his signatures and other paraphernalia, outside the Hall of Fame or down the block or wherever it is it was in Cooperstown. We all acknowledge that. What we're saying is that who we are as a nation, who we are as people, there are individuals who never deserve forgiveness. They're usually murderers, people who have taken the lives of other people. They're not usually people who made mistakes or just seem to be bad human beings in terms of their personalities. That is the cause for us not having any kind of compassion. You actually sit there with a straight face, with no compunction, no slight scintilla of compassion whatsoever over the fact that a man has been banned for 26 years? And you can't find it in yourself when it is unquestionable what this man has done for the game of baseball from a positive perspective as well. Being Charlie Hustle, being a 17-time All-Star, being a 3-time World Series champion, being an all-time hits leader. You can laugh. I'm not laughing at all. I'm saying to you, we're talking about compassion, because what you're doing and what I'm saying to you, you are sitting there with a straight face and you're saying, I don't care about the 26 years. He needs to pay for the rest of his natural life. I have no compassion for it whatsoever. I don't care. That's what you and people who think like you are saying. And I'm saying, when I think about steroid users, when I think about criminals, when I think about violators of in regards to domestic violence, when I think about so many different things and so many different types of people we have allowed to maintain or revisit involvement in baseball, or dare I say ended up in the Hall of Fame. If I were sitting here and saying to you that Pete Rose actions were defendable, I get your point. I'm not saying that, and I don't know anybody who is. He was wrong across the board, and he's been wrong all of these years. I'm simply saying he's 74 years old. It's over. And at the end of the day, it comes down to us and our willingness to say, okay, you've suffered enough. And you're not willing to do that. I am. That's all.
He's not suffering. I told you yesterday he can participate ceremonially in all kinds of baseball activities. As we know, he continues to go to Cooperstown during Hall of Fame week and hawk his signature on any memorabilia, to sell a signature. He continues to sell memorabilia in Las Vegas in his office off the strip. He gets to do whatever he wants to do, except he's not welcome back inside baseball. I don't see where that's a big problem. My prison without bars. That's not a prison. He crossed a line you cannot cross. And I don't want to get into the details of how you're threatening the very credibility of the outcomes of the games you are playing in. We're back to the Black Sox scandal of 1919. You can't come back across that line, and I applaud each of our commissioners, all the way up to Rob Manfred, for finally saying, no, I cannot lift this ban. And again, I point out what Bob Nightingale pointed out in USA Today yesterday, that once this stand is made, you have made Pete Rose the poster player for Rule 21, that you can't cross that line.
But he already is.
No,
but he already is.
He will always be.
Is.
No,
hold on. He already is.
You
That's
can't
number
say,
one.
Forgive and forget. No,
he already is. He already is, number one. Number two, he would continue to be, regardless of what decision was made. Number two. Number three, as it pertains, I'm not character assassinating any of the commissioners. I'm only talking specifically as it pertains to Pete Rose. They're all cowards because nobody wants to step up and think for themselves. I have no problem with Faye Vincent in his position. I have no problem with John Dowd in his position at the time because they were directly involved. But when you look at Bud Selig and you look at a Rob Manfred, it's almost like a Supreme Court justice, Skip, continuously leaning on the rulings and the opinions of our forefathers to the point, and they always do it, don't get me wrong, but not to the point where there's no wiggle room whatsoever for things to be modified based on the changing times, some of the things we experience, some of the things we've realized that in its own way are just as, or in some people's eyes, even more egregious than his actions. I am simply saying it is no longer about Pete Rose. It's no longer about what he has done, because we know it, and we know how unacceptable it is, and as well as everybody else. At some point, it becomes about you and what your level of compassion is. The man is 74. He did a lot of good things for the game, too. And all I'm saying is, yeah, he could make his money, he could do this, he could do that. We also saw in their report where they specifically acknowledged that there was some leniency, that they were willing to extend his way if he had been forthcoming and were willing to admit his quote-unquote addiction. Well, we got sex addicts, we got drug addicts, we got alcoholics. When you have an addiction, we have been taught it is a problem. And if it is a problem, then he had the problem. So we have no compassion. It's about us now. It's about our lack of compassion. It ain't about him. We know how bad he was. But the lack of compassion from people like you and who thinks like you is very alarming.
That's absurd.
It's very alarming.
That's offensive to anybody who loves the game of baseball. That's what that is.
So you're trying to say
no
it's insulting?
For that. For
that? All right, you don't have any compassion.
This is a bad guy who had no respect for the game that made him what he was.
But steroid users did when they were cheating.
That's a whole other issue. We're talking about Pete Rose here.
No, I'm just saying the point that you brought up about respecting the game.
At least they were trying to win. I'm not sure Pete was always trying to win. By cheating? That's what they were doing? Okay. But, I mean, we can do degrees of sins here. This is a big one. This is at the top of my list.
And I know it's a big one. But listen, we're not having this discussion if it wasn't 26 years, Skip. It didn't just happen yesterday.
Okay, remember, he got his audience with the new commissioner, and we didn't hear any of that. The commissioner didn't hear what you heard yesterday. He was shocked that the ban was retained by the new commissioner. It goes on, and that's probably the end of it. That's probably the last shot he's going to get. And so he was shocked into, oh, now I'm going to be contrite and put on a big show yesterday at the Pete Rose Sports Bar and Grill.
Forget his press conference.
Way to go.
I don't care about his press conference. I care about what the facts are.
Yeah.
And it comes down to our compassion. Here's the last thing I'm going to say. I'm going to watch baseball very, very closely, more so than I ever have in my life. And I'm not talking about on the court, on the field stuff. I'm talking about beyond the playing field. Because since so many people want to walk around and have no compassion whatsoever, we're going to see how it feels when it's extended to an abundance of people moving forward. I have compassion. It's sad to see that you guys don't.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Spare me your self-righteousness. Thank you.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Spare me.
All right, so
Spare
this
me.
just
I'd rather
in.
have a heart than be heartless.
Stephen
Tell you
A.
that
and
much.
Skip on opposite ends of the spectrum with Pete Rose.
You're
and
damn right
still,
we are.
after hearing him speak yesterday at his press conference. Are they on the opposite ends of the spectrum on this next subject, though? That is the question. When we come back, we hear from you, the people. Who would you rather have, Boogie Cousins or Dwight Howard? We'll reveal the Twitter results on the other side of the break. The guys will react as well.
You gotta stay focused.